How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another video on the channel, and today we'll be taking a look at some of my favourite albums that came out this year. This is the first of the 4 videos I've got coming out over the next week or so, showcasing some of my favourite music of 2022. Starting with my favourite albums, and the next video will be some of my favourite songs that came out this year. Then there'll be a video showcasing some of my favourite music that I discovered this year, and the last video will be some of the best indie music that came out this year that may have gone under your radar. Now, I do just want to start this video by saying that I haven't listened to every album that came out this year. In fact, I think this is probably the least albums I've ever listened to in a year. I try and listen to new material from artists that I like or albums I'm interested in, but this year's been a bit different. I started posting on this channel this year, and one of the main videos I like to do is album reactions. I've done a few already, like the Arctic Monkeys one, the Drake one, but I've not really had the time to do what I wanted to do with this channel this year. So next year I'll be posting so many reactions to albums and songs. I've even got a spreadsheet full of around 80 plus albums or something like that that came out this year that I still need to react to. And that means that I have missed some pretty big ones so far, which I will be reacting to over the next few weeks and months. But in terms of on this list, you won't see the likes of Kendrick Lamar, Jack Harlow, Steve Lacy, or Joji. I am yet to listen to them, so expect a reaction to those albums over the next weeks and months. But yeah, just keep that in mind when I'm going through this list, that I really haven't listened to that many. But I thought I'd still make a video showcasing what I think has been some of the best albums that released this year. So it's going to be a pretty short list, but let's get in with the first album, which comes in at number 11. The first on the list, we have Arctic Monkeys' The Car. This album came out a few months ago in October, and it's the 7th studio album by the Sheffield band. Now, if you've been subscribed to me for a while, you've probably noticed that there's actually quite a lot of Arctic Monkeys videos on my channel. And the reason for that is just because I'm a massive Arctic Monkeys fan. They're one of my favourite bands. And this year they came out, they dropped loads of new music, they dropped 3 singles and an album, and we weren't really expecting it. There was no sort of build up. They just dropped it. I think the first one was Mirrorball back in August. So yeah, it all kind of came out the blue, and it was a nice surprise as well. We weren't expecting anything really, and it had been at this point, I think, 4.5 years since the release of Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. And it was always going to be a bit of a mixed bag of an album, because they're at this weird stage now, Arctic Monkeys, where, they took a massive break after AM, and how successful that album was. Whether that was a good idea or not, I don't know. But after AM in 2013, they took a massive break. Took around 5 years to release Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, and that was just nothing like anyone expected. It was very jazzy, and there wasn't any elements really from the previous album or the new one, and there wasn't really any elements of Arctic Monkeys in the album. Nothing they've done previously. It's completely out there. It was more reminiscent of Alex Turner's side project, The Last Shadow Puppets. It was more like that kind of album than an Arctic Monkeys album. And I think that was the point where they kind of lost quite a few people. The album wasn't their most successful, but still they remained, one of the biggest bands in the world. So when they announced they're releasing a new album, I think a lot of people were hoping they'd kind of go back to their roots and, they'd take elements of their old sound and incorporate it to sort of their new wave that they're trying to go for. But in reality, the album was kind of a lot of the same from the previous one, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. And, I think probably is a worse album than the previous. I have this reaction on my channel, so if you want to go check that out, you can. But when I first listened to it, I was a huge fan of it. I think there was only one song that I didn't like, and to be honest, I loved it. I think it was a really good album. But the more I listened to it, and the more I had it on repeat, just kind of realized that although I still think it is a good album, I think it's definitely their worst album they've released, and I would probably prefer to listen to Tranquility Base. If I want to listen to this kind of Arctic Monkeys, I think I'd rather listen to Tranquility Base. There's still some fantastic moments on this project, but in terms of Arctic Monkeys and what they're usually known for, in terms of always switching up their sound, every album they release, they try and do something different. They've got a new sound. It just feels like each project is distinct from the last. But I just don't think you can say that about The Car. I don't think they changed it up too much. I think if anything, it got more boring. There's so many slow songs on here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because, I kind of like anything they put out, but if I was a fan, a casual fan maybe, someone who, kind of jumped on the bandwagon at AM or something like that, I can definitely see why you wouldn't be listening to this album, why you wouldn't probably have an interest in this kind of music. And yeah, I can see why you would stop listening to Arctic Monkeys as a whole, really. And it is a bit of a weird one, because you kind of think, where are they going to go from here? You don't really know. I kind of think that Alex Turner might kind of go solo soon, or do some more stuff with The Last Shadow Puppets. I think it's obvious that they don't really like making the old kind of music they used to make, which is completely fine, because it's their band, it's their rules, they can do what they want. But they're still massive. They're still sold out a tour next year where they've got, London, Manchester, and they've sold out the biggest venues there, sold out the Emirates in London for 3 nights. So I think they will always be this kind of legacy band. But in terms of the new music, I don't not like it, but I'm not the biggest fan. I was kind of hoping for something different, and that didn't really come. But nevertheless, I think this is still a good album. But in terms of the albums I listened to this year, probably my least favorite. Despite that, I still think there are some fantastic songs, and I think Body Paint, which was the second single they released. I think that is one of the best Arctic Monkeys songs out there. I think it's fantastic. And the other highlights of this album for me personally were songs like The Better Be a Mirrorball, I Ain't Quite Where I Think I Am, Hello You, and Jet Skis on the Moat. Okay, so let's move on to the next album. Okay, at number 10 we have the Black Keys with Dropout Boogie. Now, kind of similar to the Arctic Monkeys album, Black Keys, massive band, have been making music for years, and I think they're at that stage where they're probably not attracting new fans with their music. I think because it is quite similar to what they've been doing over the last few years. They haven't really changed anything up, so I think if you don't like their old stuff, you probably won't like their new stuff. And this one definitely feels kind of similar to the 2019 release Let's Rock. I mean, it's even keeping the same, color scheme. It feels like a part 2 to that album, which I personally don't have a problem with. I think Dropout Boogie is a fantastic album. I think the entire Black Keys discography is really good, and I think the only probably album in there that you'd say isn't great is probably Turn Blue, but I think that was like a contractual album. You can tell that they weren't really into it. They weren't invested into making that one. And a bit like Arctic Monkeys, the Black Keys took a massive break. They went 5 years without releasing an album, and then since 2019 they've released Let's Rock and now Dropout Boogie this year, and they've even started a new tour as well, where they've toured in America. They're coming over to the UK, which is something they haven't done in a very long time, so I'm very excited to go and see them at the O2 next year. And it's just another really solid album from the Black Keys. You kind of know what you're going to get with them nowadays, but I don't think that's a problem. I think the music they make is really good. It's really catchy, it's listenable, and long may it continue. And I'm really impressed with Dan Auerbach and what he's doing with Easy Eye Sound. If you haven't checked out some of the artists on there, he's got a really good record label going on there, and all the Black Keys music's going through there, as well as his other band, Arcs, who are also dropping an album in a couple of weeks, actually, I think. So yeah, I think Dan Auerbach, I think one of the most underrated guitarists. He doesn't really get talked about as much, but he's been making really good songs for over 20 years now. So, and yeah, like I said, what he's doing with Easy Eye Sound is really impressive. I don't know what the future holds for Black Keys, really, because if you watch the interview with Joe Rogan a couple of years ago, they were saying how they felt the fatigue and the burnout, but I didn't really come across this album. This album feels very kind of upbeat, and it just feels like they're doing what they want to do. Yeah, although the music isn't the most exciting, it doesn't really change it. It's not revolutionary or, really different from anything they released 15 years ago. I still think it has a place in today's market, and it was quite a popular album. And they even managed to get Billy F. Gibbons from ZZ Top on this album, which is pretty cool. Some of the highlights of the album for me are It Ain't Over, How Long, Good Love, and Baby I'm Coming Home. So yeah, number 10 is the Black Keys Dropout Boogie, and let's move on to number 9. So at number 9 we have the Red Hot Chili Peppers album Unlimited Love. This is an album that I've been anticipating for a very long time. It was the return of John Frusciante, who is one of the, if not the best guitarist of all time, in my opinion. But the Chili Peppers really missed John Frusciante, and I think Josh Klinghoffer have done a pretty good job over the last few albums on tours and things like that. But you just can't replicate someone like John Frusciante. So him come back onto this album was a massive plus for them. And yeah, I think overall it was a fantastic album. I will admit it was quite a long album. It was about an hour and 15 minutes, and it had about 17 songs on it. So there was quite a bit of filler in there. I don't think every song was fantastic, but there was some really good stuff in there. And the singles they released during the build up to the album were also fantastic. And I think they're probably some of the best ones on this album. And it gave you a good idea of where they were going with it. Again, a band which not really changed too much over the years, apart from the whole swapping the guitarist thing, but just solid music for over, nearly 40 years now. I had the pleasure of going to see them in June, and they're a fantastic live band as well. They played a few of the new ones, and they went down really well. Again, I think they're another legacy band that can kind of tour forever just on the material they've done, so they don't necessarily need to make new music, but I'm glad they have. They also released another album, which I think is called The Return of the Dream Canteen, which I haven't listened to yet, but I will be reacting to on this channel. More of the same, really, from the Chili Peppers on this album. You had some fantastic drum work from Chad Smith. Flea had some incredible bass lines, especially at the end, the last 30 seconds of Not the One. I absolutely love that bass riff. Anthony with his wacky lyrics and melodies, which, we've come accustomed to from the Chili Peppers. But yeah, the highlight of this album was the return of John Frusciante, and there's some incredible guitar licks on this album. Took me a couple of listens to really appreciate how good some of the guitar work is on here, but yeah, he was sorely missed, and he performed so well on this project. Some of the highlights of this project for me are It's Only Natural, What You Thinking, Not the One, Black Summer, and Poster Child. Okay, so let's move on to number 8. At number 8, we have Harry Styles' Harry's House. Now, this was released all the way back in May, and it is the third studio album as a solo project for Harry Styles. Looking at the stats on Spotify, it's absolutely incredible. Every single song has over 100 million plays, and Harry Styles has really done well for himself since leaving One Direction and becoming a solo artist. I'm still yet to fully listen to his first 2 projects, but from what I've heard, especially the last project, there's so many good songs on there. I think Harry Styles already reached this level that people kind of look down on him, similar to how people used to with Justin Bieber, where they go, if you listen to Harry Styles, you have a basic music knowledge, or you just listen to radio pop songs. But I think in reality, he's just really good at making these catchy, easily listening to songs that just they work because it's just good music. It is just music for everyone, really. I get the criticisms that it got, you know, people saying that it just feels like a rip-off of the 80s synth pop kind of wave, especially with songs like As It Was. But I think especially looking at songs like As It Was, you kind of have to take yourself away from it and be like, you know what, there's a reason why it was one of the most popular songs of the year. It's just because it's a good, catchy song and people enjoy listening to it. But it's just a really listenable project. It's such an easy listen, and it just feels like an album that Harry Styles wanted to make. You can see when he's performing this music live how much he likes it and enjoys it. And yeah, I think this album might have propelled him to an even higher status. You know, I think Harry Styles at the minute is probably one of the biggest pop stars on the planet, and you got to admit he had one of the best albums of the year, and if not the best, you know, the most successful in terms of sales, streams, and things like that. And there's no denying how big of a song As It Was and still is. You know, it's still being played so much, and definitely one of the most popular songs of the year. Aside from that, there were so many good songs on this album. Some of my favorites include Cinema, Driving, Satellite, and Late Night Talking. You also had some incredible songs on here as well, like Little Freak and Matilda are just unbelievable songs. So yeah, I can understand people not really liking this album, but for me, it was one of the best of the year, and it comes in at number 8. Okay, let's move on to number 7. And at number 7, we have Drake and 21 Savage's collaborative album, Loss. This was yet another surprise album, and he revealed actually on a live stream a few weeks ago that it actually took around 4 months for him and 21 Savage to actually make it. And yeah, a load of help from a lot of producers and things like that, especially Metro Boomin, who was also working on his own project. But for me, this was a really big one. I was kind of nervous going into it because, first of all, I think a Drake and 21 Savage collaborative album had been long overdue. Obviously, Drake had his, I think it was 2015, collaborative album with Future for What a Time to Be Alive. And he said also that really didn't take too long to make. So yeah, Drake and 21 Savage have been, you know, making hits together for years, you know, with Sneakin', Jimmy Cooks, Knife Talk. So I think it was only a matter of time until his collaboration happened. But the reason why I was so nervous for it is because of his previous release this year, which was honestly Nevermind. I did actually react to that album, but I haven't released it yet, so I will be releasing that in the future. It was a terrible album. You know, I can see what he was trying to do with it, but it was a pretty bad album. And it's not that rare for Drake to drop 2 projects in a year, but I just thought, you know, it came so soon after releasing Honestly Nevermind, and it really didn't have a good reception. Not a lot of people liked it. Again, you can see what he's trying to do with it. He's trying to, you know, infiltrate that dance kind of housey market, you know, which he's tried to do in the past. But on Honestly Nevermind, I think there was only real one proper highlight on there, and that was the final song, which was Jimmy Cooks featuring 21 Savage. Completely out of place on the album, but it definitely highlighted how good the team up can be when they actually come together and make songs like that. And that's exactly what they did with Her Loss. They came together, 16 songs, and I think 90% of them were really good. If you want to check out that reaction on my channel, I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, I think it was a really good album, really good timing as well. 21 Savage is someone that, you know, I think is growing and growing more and more the more he releases projects. He hasn't released a project since I Am Great and I Was. I think that was 2018, so it's been a bit of a long overdue for him. I think the last one actually might have been Savage Mode actually, but it's been long overdue for him to release some new material. So I'm really glad that he got time to shine as well with, you know, one of the biggest artists in the world. I think he carried himself really well. I think it was kind of more of a Drake album than 21 Savage album, because Drake kind of dominated a lot of the songs and he had quite a few solo songs. I think there was only one 21 Savage solo song, whereas I think Drake had 2. I think it was a project that Drake needed to release, and I think the reason he probably released it so quickly is because of the backlash he faced from his previous album and how badly received it was. There is some cracking songs on here, and I don't think it's the best rap album of the year. I mean, there's a couple more on this list, well, once we get down to it, but yeah, I don't think it kind of reaches the levels of some of the other rap albums that were released this year, but there are quite a few bangers on here. Some of my favorites are Major Distribution, On BS, Middle of the Ocean, kind of sound like old school Drake. You had the return of Travis Scott with Pussy and Millions. 21 Savage got his time to shine on 3am with Glenwood, and I guess it's Fuck Me, which is the last song on the album from Drake, is, you know, one of his, personally, I think it's one of his best songs ever. Definitely an album that I think is a bit of a grower. I think you kind of have to listen to it quite a few times for it to really settle in on you, but yeah, especially you can tell in the first song, Rich Flex, when they're kind of going back and forth, how well the relationship between them works. And, you know, fantastic beats in there, great beat switches, great flows, just what we expected really. But I think it's the album we needed. It was a great album for 21 because I think it pushed him higher into people's regards in terms of popularity and exposure, because obviously Drake being one of the biggest people on the planet. And for Drake, I think he just needed a solid album with a bunch of solid songs. You know, his last few projects haven't been great. So I think he just needed a pretty solid album. And I think that's what I'd say this one was. It was solid. It weren't anything revolutionary, wasn't really anything new brought to the table, but it's just Drake doing what we know he can do, and 21 Savage given the time to shine. So yeah, I think there was definitely a place for this album. And in terms of the list, I'll put it at number 7. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. Number 6, we have the LA band Wallows with Tell Me That It's Over. Now, the Wallows are a band that I've been listening to for quite a long time now, and I really think they deserve kind of more exposure than they're actually getting. I think they're still quite a big band, but in terms of, you know, the numbers they're getting, the sales they're getting, and when they go on tour, the venues they're at, I think they definitely deserve to be kind of a bigger band, considering the music they make is really good. They've been making good music now for quite a few years. I think it was their debut album, I think in 2019, Nothing Happens. That was a really, really good album. That came after the Spring EP, which has a load of really good songs in it, which just shows, you know, how good this band are. Tell Me That It's Over is just another really solid album from them, and I think they're just constantly producing this music that, you know, I think it fits really well into that sort of alternative rock indie genre that is kind of getting a bit of a resurgence now. And you may recognize the lead singer from the Wallows is Dylan Minetti. He was in the TV show 30 Reasons Why, and he's been in quite a few films as well. So, you know, he's quite a busy guy, so it's cool to see that he's got time for the music side of things as well, because I'm sure his lifestyle's really hectic, but they're constantly producing new music. They're always putting out new music. They put out a song actually a few weeks ago called Wish Me Luck, which is a really, really fantastic song. It's going to be actually on my favourite songs of the year, even though it only came out a few weeks ago. So yeah, I hope 2023 is quite a big year for the Wallows. I'm going to see them next month in London. So they're doing a European tour. I think they're doing an American tour after that. Yeah, highlights for me personally on this album are Hard to Believe, At the End of the Day, I Don't Want to Talk, and Especially You. Yeah, it's quite a short album, but there's definitely some fantastic songs in there. Okay, let's move on to number 5. Number 5, we have Yellow Days, Slow Dance, and Romance. Now, this is more of an EP than an album, I will admit, but I think it definitely deserved to have a spot on this list because I think it is just such a fantastic body of work. There's only 5 songs on there, but it's really enjoyable, and I was really surprised at kind of the smallish numbers that it has on Spotify compared to some of his other material. You know, in the past he's had some pretty big songs and he's worked with the likes of Mac DeMarco, and he's been really successful with that. So I thought this EP would kind of have a bit more listens than it actually does have, so I was a bit surprised. But for me personally, I absolutely love the 5 songs on here. Yeah, again, I'm just quite surprised that there's not more sort of people listening to it. If you've never listened to Yellow Days, his songs are very laid back, very chill. I think it's just that kind of music. I just really love that kind of music, and this EP is kind of more of the same, but it kind of takes different element to it. It kind of feels a lot more sort of soulful, a bit more jazzy. And my favorite song on here is Slow Dance and Romance, which is the same name as the EP. And since this EP, actually, he has released an album, which I'm going to listen to on this channel, react to on this channel. But yeah, I wanted to put this EP in here because it's one of my favorite pieces of work that came out this year. And yeah, I think it just really deserved a spot on this list. Not really much else to say about that project, but if you haven't listened to it already, I definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, let's move on to the top 4 of this list. At number 4, we have The Foals and Life Is Yours. This is a really cool album from The Foals. Takes elements from Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost Part 1 and 2, which came out a few years before. And according to the band, this was an album they were working on during COVID, during the lockdowns and things like that. They'd meet up and they'd just go into a studio all day and just make these songs. And you could definitely see what they were trying to do with this album. They were saying how, you know, it was so depressing in real life that they just wanted to make some uplifting, dancing music. And this album is just full of so many good songs, so many feel-good songs, so many poppy songs, so many dancey songs. But it doesn't strive too much away from, you know, what the Foals are known for. Obviously, their earlier stuff is a lot more sort of rocky, kind of that kind of stuff, a bit more guitar based. But they take those elements and they mix it with some synth stuff, some poppy stuff, and it just works so well. I think Yanis has such a fantastic voice for basically any kind of genre. He can kind of float on anything, but this kind of music he really fits. I didn't really know what to expect going into this album because they haven't really released anything for a few years before this, but yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised, and for me it's one of the best albums of the year. They're another band that I had the pleasure of seeing this year in London, and the new music on this album really works well with the live stuff, and they've even changed the songs. You know, their old songs like My Number and things like that, the most popular ones, kind of fit the new sound that they're going for, and again it really works, and the concerts are just an absolute experience. It's fantastic. It's such an upbeat sort of kind of place to be. It's such a positive place. The vibes everywhere are immaculate, and it's just, yeah, I definitely recommend going to a Foals concert if you haven't already. Now, I won't say too much, but there is a song on this album which all I'll say is that it comes into my top 10 songs of the year. It's one of my favorites that got released this year. But overall, I think the album, there's so many good songs on there, but the highlights for me personally are songs like 2001, 2 a.m, Flutter. Flutter is a really good song, one that kind of went under the radar. And speaking of, one of the songs under the radar is, again, fantastic. And then the lead song from the album, Life Is Yours, really works well alongside The Sound and Looking High. I'm going to recommend to you to listen to all the albums on this list, but if you're looking for some kind of positive, uplifting music, definitely check this one out, especially if you're looking for some new songs to add to your summer playlist for next year. Definitely check this one out. There's so many in this album. And let's move on to the top 3. And at number 3, we have JID, The Forever Story. Another album that I've been looking forward to for so long. His first couple of albums have been fantastic. DiCaprio 2, The Never Story, filled with so many good songs. And JID's been a guy that I've kind of been waiting to blow up for a while now. I think ever since he came on with the Cypher, what he did with Ski Mask, I think he's been just dropping, even if it's not features, his own songs have just been absolute bangers. And like I said, the last couple of albums have been filled with so many good hip-hop songs. And yeah, I was really anticipating this one. It's a sequel to The Never Story, and it definitely didn't disappoint. It's something about JID, I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know whether it's the delivery, the flow, I don't know, it's something about him just makes him, for me, my favorite rapper. Is he my favorite rapper? I can kind of listen to him all day, I won't get sick of him. And I think it's because his music has such a variety as well. I mean, in the albums, there's so much diversity between the songs, and it doesn't really get tiring. There's no repetition in there, really. And that's definitely the case with this album as well. It's another one that I reacted to, and I'm currently editing, so that'll be out on my channel soon. But yeah, to kind of jump ahead a little bit, it definitely is one of my favorite albums of the year. So many good songs, and it was a bit of an experience listening to it, because it was just so many deep and meaningful songs, but he had some fantastic, lead singles like Dance Now and Surround Sound with 21 Savage. Yeah, JID's been smashing it for years in his singles, in his features, and his stuff with Dreamville. I feel like he's a cut above, the rest of the people on Dreamville. Not to, slander them or disrespect any of them, but I just feel like JID is like so far up here, and I'm still kind of waiting for him to get put on that pedestal. I don't think this album kind of did that for him, although I feel like it was a really successful album, and I think a lot of people loved it, and they got really good reviews and things like that. I don't feel like it pushed him into that next kind of territory that he's looking to. The single with 21 Savage, that massively helped. It's by far one of the most popular songs on the album, and his other one, Dance Now, which has a fantastic video to go with it as well. Definitely check out that music video, very creative. And it's just as expected really from Jid. His flow is just incredible. The beats on here are brilliant. There's so many beat switches. I think within like the first 4 songs there was like 6 beat switches or something. It was just going all over the place, but it just works. He just floats on any beat, really, and he's so creative with his music. And again, a bit like the Drake album, it's a grower. The more you listen to it, the better it gets. It was another quite long album, so you kind of get towards the end of it, and you don't appreciate some of the songs on the latter part of the album as much as you do kind of the first few when you're just getting into it. Speaking of, one of the highlights actually of the album for me personally was the final song on the album called Louder 2. Absolutely love the beat on here, and the way it transitions from the chorus to the verse to the hook. I think that the flow is really crazy, and the bass is just like in your ears so much, and it's just a really cool song. And I think that's probably one of my favorites on the album, obviously alongside the likes of Dance Now and Surround Sound, which were released as singles before. And there was even a couple that couldn't make it on the album because of sampling clearing and things like that. But you had the 29 Freestyle, which he released as a single a little while ago, which is great, and the 2007, which is only on YouTube as far as I know. And there's even a really nice song called Cody Blue 31, which is dedicated to one of his childhood friends, as a really beautiful song once you know the meaning behind it. And he even managed to get a feature with Lil Wayne on Just in Time, which is a team up which I've been dreaming of for a few years now. Some of the other highlights on here are Can't Make You Change with Ari Lennox, Can't Punk Me with Earth Gang, Radar, and Stars with Yasin Bey. So that was my number 3. Could easily have been my favorite album of the year, and is one of my favorite albums, but I think there's 2 more that just kind of edge it for me. And at number 2 we have Pusha T, It's Almost Dry. It was released quite early on in 2022, I think April, but as soon as I heard it, I kind of knew that this would be one of my favorite albums of the year. It's another artist that hasn't really put out a lot of material in quite a while. I think his last one was Daytona, the Kanye West album back in 2018. But other than that, he hasn't really done much. He hasn't done any singles. He's done a couple of features, but nothing really. I kind of thought Pusha T was done with music, really. This album came out of nowhere, and it kind of blew me away, to be honest. I wasn't expecting this level of, production and quality from Pusha T. I've always liked his music, and I'm actually a big fan of his previous stuff as well. Even his stuff with Clips back in the day, I think it's fantastic, but I wasn't expecting this level from him. People talk about how the likes of J. Cole, Drake, they're all kind of getting older, and they're pushing on into their nearly late 30s, 40s. But I think Pusha T just goes to show that it don't matter how old you are, if you've got it, you've got it. We've seen it with Pusha T, with Eminem. Age is just a number, really. And they're just capable of making this fantastic music. Some really impressive features as well. You got Jay-Z, Pharrell, Labyrinth, a lot of Kanye West. He even managed to get Kanye West and Kid Cudi on a song together. And you also had Lil Uzi Vert and Don Toliver, which is a fantastic combination. And yeah, just overall a really impressive album from someone that I wasn't really expecting to drop anything. And yeah, it came out of the blue, and I think it deservedly is my number 2. I kind of like all the songs in this album. It's kind of one of those rare ones where I don't really dislike anyone majorly in particular, so there wouldn't be any skips for me. If I could get it on vinyl, you know, I wouldn't bother skipping any songs. When I listen to it, I don't bother missing out on any or leaving any out. It kind of all, for me, just really fantastic. Very cohesive. The album flows fantastically. Like I said, production's great. The beat's fantastic. The flow's fantastic. The lyricism from Pusha T is brilliant. Obviously, you got all the mentions of cocaine and things like that, but it's what you expect from Pusha T, and it still works. It doesn't actually get repetitive, despite him saying it about 4 times every song. Despite me liking all of them, I think kind of the highlights and the best songs on the album for me is probably Open Air, Brambleton, Scrape It Off, Call My Bluff, and I Pray For You as well, which is a beautiful way to end an album. So yeah, that was my number 2, and now we're going to move on to my favourite album of 2022, and that is Surf Curse Magic Hour. Now, this is an album that I wasn't expecting to be my favourite of the year. To be honest, going into it, all I really knew from Surf Curse was Freaks and Disco, which I only discovered last year. They're their biggest songs, obviously. But one of my favourites, actually, is a song called Labyrinth, which came out a few years ago. And it was just one of those bands that I've always liked that song, Labyrinth, but I've never bothered to go into Surf Curse and listen to a lot more of their music. And it wasn't until recently, you know, sort of earlier this year, that I found out how brilliant their music is. I think every member of this band is absolutely fantastic, so talented, especially Nick Rattigan, who's on the drums and vocals. You know, he's also the lead singer of Current Joy. That's his kind of side project. And it was kind of a weird experience for me, this album, because I actually went to go see Surf Curse in September. They played the Electric Ballroom in London. It was an incredible gig, absolutely fantastic. One of the best gigs I've ever been to. Small venue, you know, fantastic band, brilliant crowd, that it all combined together to just be a fantastic night. But yeah, it was strange because they played quite a few songs from this album, but at the time the album hadn't actually been released. The songs hadn't been released. There was about 3 or 4 unreleased songs on their set list. So I kind of got a taste of what the album would be, and I was just kind of waiting for it. I think it came out about 2 weeks after the gig. So yeah, it was fresh in my mind. I kind of had the idea of what the album would be. And again, it's another album that I actually reacted to, but I'm still yet to release. So that'll be coming out as well. And you know, it is kind of sad boy music. It is that, you know, it's not the most jolly music in the world, but in terms of lyrics, I mean, the music itself is very upbeat and very, you know, fast paced. But in terms of lyrics, it's not. It is quite depressing most of the time. But you know, I think in terms of surf rock, indie rock, whatever you want to call it, I think it is the best of the best. I think it's easily the best album in that genre for this year, and for me, best album of the year. If you haven't heard of Surf Curse, I definitely recommend checking out the 2 biggest songs, Disco and Freaks. You probably definitely recognize Freaks because it was a big song on Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of stuff. This album is full of so many good songs, start to finish. It's absolutely brilliant. Quite a long one, considering it's only 12 songs. I think it's about an hour long, so there is quite a few long ones in there, but even their 6-minute songs fly by. You don't feel like you listen to it for that long. It is another grower, but in terms of when I actually first listened to it, I kind of already knew that this was my favourite project of the year. It did come out, I think, in late August, so by that time I'd heard quite a few of these albums already, so I kind of decided then already that yeah, this was my favourite project. And it's just really cool to see a band like this grow, because I think they're only going to get better and better, bigger and bigger. And yeah, you can just see the talent they have just in this album. Again, it's another album that doesn't really have that much publicity behind it. It's not really got many plays on Spotify. It wasn't really that successful in terms of sales, but I don't think you can determine the success of an album on statistics. I think it's just got to be, you know, how good is the music, and I think the music's fantastic. I think the one kind of mini complaint, it's not a complaint at all, but the kind of thing that I noticed is that the songs they released during the build up to the album, I think, are the best ones. They released around 4 or 5 singles, and I think they definitely are the highlights of the album. But you know, from a marketing point of view, it kind of makes sense. If you want people to listen to your album, you release the best songs from it because they're more likely to listen to it. So I get that. But I did feel like the songs they released before kind of were the best on this project. But despite that, there were some really, really good songs that they hadn't released, and it was a bit of a surprise listening to them. In the build up to the album, they released Arrow, Self Portrait, Lost Honor, TVI, and Sugar, which were the most popular songs on the album, and they all are brilliant songs. And the other highlights for me on this album were Kathy, Randall Flagg, and No Tomorrows. No Tomorrows especially as well. For some reason, that song really stuck with me, and it really kind of jumped out as being one of the best songs on the album for me personally. But if I had to choose a favourite from the album, I'd probably go for Lost Honor. I think the guitar work's fantastic. It's what I like from a song where it doesn't kind of stick to one thing all the time. It goes back and forth between, you know, different riffs, different rhythms, and it's a really fun song to play on guitar as well. But yeah, for me, I think it was an easy choice. I think definitely my favourite album of the year is Magic Hour by Surf Curse. They were my favourite albums that released in 2022. Let me know what you think. Did you have some of those in your list as well? What albums should I put on the list of ones that I should react to? Like I said, I've got 70 on the list. I've got something to work through, but are there any highlights from this year that you think deserve more credit, songs and albums that people should definitely listen to? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, as I mentioned, I know the list is probably a bit basic and it featured quite a lot of, you know, popular albums from big artists, but yeah, I'm gonna really try and listen to a lot more albums this year. And yeah, that's the kind of the main goal for the channel in 2023, is to just put out so many reactions to albums, you know, try and get them out. As I mentioned before, the next video on this channel will be my top 50 songs of the year, so look out for that one. That'll be coming out in the next couple of days. So if you're interested in things like music reactions and maybe just listening to me talk nonsense for 20 minutes, then please consider subscribing, like the video if you enjoyed, and I hope you have a nice day.